r/no sleep. The voice of my sister's ghost. On September 23, 1995, my older sister disappeared. She had been walking home from school, and had taken a shortcut through the woods. Although her body was never found, blood splatter across the forest floor indicated murder, and a pretty gruesome one at that. I was only 5 years old at the time. Tamara had been 10 years my senior at 15. She was an exceptionally beautiful girl, with long black hair and eyes like twin pear dots, but she had a solitary nature and mostly kept to herself. I have many distant memories of her curled up on the living room couch with a book, the fading afternoon sunlight catching the hints of blue in her hair. "Run along," she would say to me. "I'm reading." Given the vast age difference, Tamara and I were never particularly close. But I loved her, and I knew she loved me. Though rarely openly affectionate, I could sense it in the way she looked at me, how she would peek in on me every night before going to bed herself, how she would sit at my bedside and stroke my hair whenever I was sick. On the morning of her death, on her way out the door, she looked me straight in the eye and said, "I love you, Dinah." It was completely unexpected, but felt so right. I don't know what prompted my sister to suddenly declare her love for me, but part of me has always suspected she knew, deep down, that it would be her last chance. Tamara's disappearance horrified our small Ontario town, and devastated our family. My mother was so overwhelmed with grief that she could barely function, and my grandparents moved in temporarily to help take care of me. I was confused and kept asking when my big sister would be coming home. The adults around me tried to explain that Tamara was gone forever, but death is too slippery a concept for a kindergartner to hold on to. The hunt for my sister's killer lasted nearly a year, but after a while, all leads dried up, and the police had nothing to go on. Some believed she could still be alive, and I was among them. Call it denial, but even as the years passed without any confirmation of Tamara's fate, I clung to the hope that my sister was alive somewhere. 5 years later, I received a sign. But it wasn't what I expected. Unbeknownst to my parents, I often visited the woods where Tamara had been snatched. Despite the horrific crime that had taken place there, I felt peaceful, and closer to Tamara in a way. On this particular sunny afternoon, I sat on the bank of a bubbling creek and tossed pebbles into the water. Although it had been a hot day, this particular area of the woods was eerily cold, and I was about to learn why. "Dinah." The voice, though soft and whispery, startled me so badly I nearly fell headfirst into the water. My hands shot out just in time, catching me, and I managed to right myself before jumping to my feet and spinning around, facing in the general direction of the voice. No one was there. "Hello?" I called. "Is someone there?" "Dinah." The voice sounded a little too close for comfort. And yet, so far away. It seemed to come from all directions, if that makes sense. I hadn't heard it in 5 years, but I'd recognize it anywhere. "Tamara?" My legs turned to water, and I fell to my knees. "Is that you? Dinah? I love you, Dinah." She sounded exactly as she had that fateful morning, when she told me she loved me, only to disappear hours later. I reached out, groping at the air, but found nothing. It was as if we were separated by an invisible wall. As if she was in another realm entirely, where she could speak to me, but couldn't appear before me. "Tamara," I wailed. "Dinah. I love you, Dinah. I'll see you later." The voice faded out like a distant siren, and I began to sob. It took nearly an hour for me to regain some sense of composure and return home. I didn't tell my parents. They didn't know about my secret excursions to the woods, and I didn't want to lose that precious connection to my sister. But hearing her voice had reopened old wounds, and my grief had returned full force, hitting me like a tsunami. I wanted to return to the woods as soon as possible, but the idea terrified me. I felt as if I'd heard something I was never meant to hear, as if I'd stepped into somewhere I didn't belong. The experience was surreal and had a dark, sinister edge that frightened me. Not to mention how emotionally crippling it had been to hear my sister's voice after all these years. Nearly a month passed before I decided to return, figuring that if I didn't do it now, I'd never get around to it. I sat on an old tree stump and waited. This time, Tamara's voice didn't call my name. Instead, she was humming. It was a tune I didn't recognize until she began to sing it. "I don't know why/you say goodbye, I say hello/hello, hello." I smiled to myself. Tamara had been a huge Beatles fan. My parents always put on Abbey Road on her birthday as a tribute to her. I closed my eyes and listened to her husky, yet sweet voice. Until it stopped and was replaced by a startled gasp. "Dinah? What are you doing here?" "Tamara." I yelled, jumping to my feet. I'm here. Tamara. Dinah, you shouldn't be wandering through these woods on your own. Tamara. I shrieked, so shrilly a flock of birds in the trees took flight. Come on, Dinah. Let's go home. Here, take my hand. I reached out, desperate, but once again, only grasped air. I began to sob, moaning and wailing my sister's name over and over again. Then the memories hit me. As if I were sitting beneath a waterfall, letting the cold liquids loose over my body. Shocking, vivid, in colors too harsh for reality. My sister's murder. Dinah? What are you doing here? Tamara stands in the middle of the path, her dark blue backpack slung over her left shoulder. The afternoon sunlight forms a halo around her. She looks like an angel. A green-eyed, raven-haired angel. I was looking for you, I tell her. Dinah, you shouldn't be wandering through these woods on your own. But you are. I'm a big girl. There is a pause. Then she reaches out. Come on, Dinah. Let's go home. Here, take my hand. Her palm is cool and soft against mine. We walk about 20 feet, then stop as something steps out of the trees. It is tall and ugly. Yellow eyes and needle-like teeth. Gray skin with the texture of tree bark. A monster from a dark fairy tale. What the fuck? Tamara hisses. It is the first time I've ever heard her swear. The creature lets out a sound somewhere between a snake hissing and a lion roaring. It charges at us, long, sinewy legs pumping. Tamara shoves me aside, and I land in a nearby bush. Tamara! I scream. The creature swipes at my sister with a clawed hand, tearing open 3 hideous gashes in her chest. I scream, but Tamara remains silent, her face pale, teeth clenched. The creature grabs her by the ankle, squeezing so hard the bones crunch. But even as she is dragged away, Tamara faces me with a strained smile. It's going to be okay, she calls. It is. I scream her name, but all I hear is the angry snarls of the monster and my sister's wails as she is torn apart. I ran home sobbing, screaming that a monster had killed Tamara. My parents panicked. This had happened before, on the day Tamara vanished. I told them everything. I told them about my visits to the woods, the voice I had heard, what I remembered. Mum hugged me and cried while Dad called the police. A second search took place. This time, they found Tamara's skull and femur on a cave, several miles off from where she had vanished. She had been dead all this time. But finally, my family had closure. Slowly, the story of that day came out. I had gone into the woods to meet Tamara, knowing she had taken that route before. The creature had attacked us. I ran home and told my parents Tamara was gone, but couldn't articulate what had happened. All I could tell anyone was that something had taken my sister away. The following day, however, I seemed not to remember what I'd seen, what I'd endured. As if the sheer trauma of what had happened blocked out the memory. Tamara had come to me. She forced me to confront what had happened, so that I could move on. So that we could all move on. They never found the monster that killed Tamara, but it turned out people had been reporting sightings for years. Family pets had turned up dead, and people had been attacked. My sister, however, was the first fatality. Once I remembered everything, it wasn't easy to let go. I had nightmares of what had happened, and would often wake up to find my pillow soggy with tears. I would go into the woods and sit on that stupid stump for hours, waiting for Tamara to come to me. She never did. I feared that she had abandoned me. It took me a long time to accept that she had moved on too. She could rest in peace now. I miss her. I miss her a lot. I visit her grave every day, leaving flowers and singing hello goodbye to her. I cry a lot too. It's been 23 years, but the heart never fully heals from such a loss. Over Christmas, I visited Tamara again, despite the cold. I knelt in the frost-dusted grass and hugged the headstone, resting my cheek against the cold, rough rock. "Hi, Tammy," I said. "Everything good up in heaven, sis?" The wind gusted, and I smiled. I'll take that as a yes. Letting go of the headstone, I sat back with a groan, rubbing my lower back. Shit. My spine. Being pregnant is no picnic, let me tell you. But it's worth it all. I smiled. "You hear that, Tammy? You're going to be an auntie." I ran my hand over the smooth hill of my stomach. 6 months. It's going to be a little girl. Another gust of wind, this time feeling, in a way, like an embrace. "I'm going to call her Tamara," I told my sister. "I miss you so much. I love you. I'll see you later, okay?" "Okay," I almost heard her whisper, "I love you too, Dinah." I blew a kiss at the headstone. Then I stood and left the cemetery. It had begun to snow again.